Whatever rocks your socks, whatever spins your top, whatever winds your watch, whatever flips your flop, whatever turns you on, whatever flies your flag, whatever bangs your gong, or whatever swings your bag. Do it often, but do it well, 'cause nobody knows and there's no way to tell when the ride ends. Good morning. I apologize for the lighting. It's dawn. Very sketchy lighting. Welcome back to Turtle Beach. How was your week? Mine was terrific. All weeks are terrific on Turtle Beach. I'm out here at about 6:30. Nobody here but me and the soy dogs, and they know me. They know I'm not edible, so they don't care. What a glorious time to be a stray dog, huh? We're going to do something a little different this morning. Typically, I'll begin these in my house and walk out to the beach and tell you a story. This morning, I'm going to walk in from the beach and tell you a story and introduce you to the cow pasture. And yes, I apologize. I forgot to put in my tooth before I came out here, and I just can't be bothered to go home and get my tooth. So we're all just going to have to live with Steve's hillbilly appearance for once. So this is the green sward, Sherwood Forest. This is the beach road to Non Chai Tale. That's the cattle pasture. That is more of the green sward. I don't have to tell you that's the ocean, right? I want to remind you there's a fun run April 28th in Ban Chong. If you're down here in the south, if you're in Panga, please go to it. Find an organizer and say, I'm here because Steve Rosse told me to come. This week was Songkran. I hope you had a wonderful Songkran. I did. You know, here it's still a very sweet cultural event. And it happens right in front of my house. This is the beach road, and my house is down there. And I step out in front of my house. Everybody in town goes up and down this road. The Ampere, the Obatoa comes in and puts in big black tanks. They fill it with water, free water for everybody. And when those tanks run out, then you bring your own water or you're done. And I don't have to leave the house. I stand in front of my house with a squirt gun until it's not fun anymore. And then I go in the house and take a nap. But I was thinking about Songkran. You see these scrums. You see, you'll get a gang. Of course, men and women don't do anything together in Thailand. So you've got these gangs of young men running around with buckets of talcum powder, and you've got these groups of young women, usually 3 on a motorcycle, teenagers or early 20s, and these women are dressed in their skimpiest outfits, and these gangs of men will accost them in the street, and they'll stop them on their motorcycles, and they'll pat that powder on their heads and their faces and their shoulders, and oops, maybe a hand slips in that big crowd, and some guy gets to cop a feel. This is the only time of the year, one day, he's allowed to touch a woman in public, right? Who's not his mother. And the boys take advantage of it. They don't, I mean, it's not like they're actually assaulting women. I don't think it's assault. And if the women didn't want it, they would stay home, I assume. But it occurred to me that this is probably the first time in a young Thai man's life that he will ever touch a woman suggestively, erotically. And it is the first time, I'm sure, in many young Thai women's lives when they will be touched this way by a man. And I've said before, it's amok time. This holiday serves a purpose. It's a release valve. This is a terribly rigidly controlled, buttoned down culture. Millions of rules. We come here and we think, oh, I can ride down the street with a hooker on the back of my motorcycle and the cop will why me. Therefore, there's no rules. No, there's a million rules. And they know, they're aware they live in a very rigidly controlled, buttoned down world. And so once a year, they get to cut loose, and they do it, at least here, in a very gentle, sweet way. But that experience of touching a woman that way, even if it's just the back of the hand against the side of the boob, I'm sure it's a huge moment in a young man's life. It would have been in mine, I assure you. This is the cattle pasture, all right? So as I've said before, our village, Mubankao, the 9th village in the Ampur, it consists of these two roads. That's the beach. That's called Tanon Chai Tale, or the beach road. And that is the second road, Tanon Song, the second road. And between them, right in the middle of our village, taking up most of the room of the village, is this enormous pasture. And because our soil here in the south, particularly here right next to the beach, is all sand, we got a million ants. Ants love to dig in the sand. And this time of year, it's very, very brown. There hasn't been rain for a long time. Well, I mean, we've started, I think, twice. It has rained in the last week or two. At any rate, yeah, Songkran, the underlying, the subtext for young men and women is a social experience, a sexual experience, or so says Steve. A little bit of housekeeping. Somebody said, Steve, you're just jealous of Christopher G. Moore because he sold millions more books than you have. Millions? I doubt anybody has ever sold 1 million copies of any book about Thailand that wasn't The Lonely Planet Guide. I don't think any novel has ever sold 1 million, let alone millions, and certainly Christopher G. Moore has not sold millions of books. But I mean, I tried to Google it, I couldn't find any source. If anybody out there knows how to find sales figures for books, perhaps Margaret Langdon, who wrote an English government, the English governess in the court of Siam, maybe over the last 100 years, she sold 1 million books based on the movie, the sales of the movie or something. But maybe Lawrence Osborne, who is the best writer working in Thailand today, by far, bar none. Lawrence Osborne's Expat Days. Wadi Kap, Wadi Kap. Nong Tu, she's the cook at Pisau restaurant, which is our Michelin mentioned restaurant here in town. At any rate, yeah, if you know how to look up the sales statistics, Bangkok Days by Lawrence Osborne, I don't think he sold 1 million copies of that. The Glass Kingdom, his other Bangkok novel, I don't think even combined he sold 1 million copies of those. But I can't find a source, a credible source on sales. DK Books and Asia Books used to post sales of their titles. What is the best-selling DK book publication this month? But they didn't publish figures. They didn't publish how many copies were sold. And it was only their books that they published that they would list. So if you've got a source out there, Danny Spite, maybe you know, you're in the biz. Maybe you know if anybody sold 1 million books about Thailand. I was thinking, you know, looking through these books, going back years and years, the best-selling DK books and Asia books, a lot of it is newspaper columns like mine. There was a time, and I haven't thought about this in a while, when there were a group of us in this country, maybe 6 or 7 of us, who were paid simply to be expats. And to, what the hell? There's a car on the cattle pasture. Oh, that's Nong Chu. Good morning. Wadi kap, wadi kap. ไปไหน
ไปมาร์เก็ต
ไปตลาด ไปไหนอะไปตลาด Naval. Haval? Haval? Is that a car brand? I've never heard of that. Anyway, yeah, we were paid just to be expats and describe that experience in words. And I suppose now in YouTube there are people who are being paid simply to be expats. But it's not like the old days. I mean, we used to have a contract and benefits and business cards that said we were, you know, columnists in the newspaper. This is, I don't know what this is about. So this part of the cattle pasture used to be something, right? That's a big sign. It used to say, you know, Sanam Luang or something like that. And the entirety of this thing is ringed by the remains of a brick wall and these broken light stanchions. There used to be street lights on this street ringing this part of the field. And I don't know when this was all built. I would guess a long time ago. That looks like very old construction to me. But somebody put a lot of time and attention into building this wall. And it goes all the way around this giant field. Excuse me for a moment. I'm going to get a rock out of my shoe. The price of living in Thailand. You've always got to get a rock out of your shoe. So, that doesn't, I don't know if that exists anymore or not. Simply being paid to simply be an expat and describe that in words. People on YouTube that are making money, as far as I can see, are showing you condos or taking you to M-Sphere or climbing up Doi Suthep. They're not just living an expat life. They're you know, giving you advice, selling you products. Oh well. So this is, again, this is the second half of the cattle pasture, and it's being used at the moment for football. And it has a big trough. There's a kind of drainage around this thing, I suppose, to keep the water off the football pitch. And they use this whenever we have a festival in town, like the New Year's Festival, the Turtle Festival, what else? A cattle show, whatever we have. They'll fill this with cars at 20 baht a car. They will absolutely fill this space with cars 4, 5, 6 days out of the year. Well, 4, 5, 6 incidents, events, festivals out of the year. This is another gate into it, another dilapidated Gorman-Gast gate. All right, the story I want to tell you. In about 91, 92, I had a friend named Phil Watkins. And Phil had a charter fishing boat in Phuket called the Wahoo. And Phil's office was downtown and air conditioned. He allowed smoking in the office. So I used to, when I'd go downtown to go shopping or whatever, I'd stop in Phil's and have a couple cigarettes and talk with Phil. And one day I was in there and he said, I've just met a guy, a Singaporean guy who is launching a new fishing magazine. And he's looking for writers. I'm going to introduce you. And I said, I don't go fishing. I hate the ocean. I hate boats. He said, yeah. Talk to this guy. So I met the guy. His name was Terence Chua. He was a very well turned out, late 20s, early 30s, Singaporean Chinese guy. Real go-getter. He had a degree in marketing. And he had just launched this fishing magazine called Southeast Asian Fishing World. And I'm going to point out to you this cement trough here, and it goes all the way around that football pitch. I don't know when it was created, but it's certainly not maintained. I don't think that would drain much water at the moment. And this is the back of my house. You see those roofs? Those are one of those. I think that one is my house. I would turn in here and walk home, but I want to tell you this story about Terence Chua. I'm going to walk around the football pitch. Yeah, so I met Terence and he said, yeah, I'm just launching. I've had my first issue. It's fishing magazine, Southeast Asian Fishing World. sea fishing, get it? SEA, Southeast Asia Fishing World. And I said, yeah, I don't do boats. I don't go on the water. I hate it. He said, yeah, that's what I want you to do. The Sting, and the Sting used to be a humorous first-person anecdotal column at the end of all magazines. And he said, I want our Sting to be called the Jonah, and because market research, and I would come to find that Terence was absolutely slave to market research. Market research says that for every fisherman who goes on a fishing trip, there's a spouse who goes along who hates fishing but is along for the ride. And I want this magazine to be in every charter fishing boat in Southeast Asia, and I want something there for the non-fishing people. And he said, so I want you to write a column called The Jonah about how to have fun on a boat when you hate boats. He said, I'll fly you down to Singapore, I'll pay you twice your word rate, put you up in a nice hotel. I said, yeah, okay. So I went down there one time, and he put me in a gorgeous hotel, took me out to fantastic meals, introduced me to his gorgeous wife and his little 7-8-year-old daughter, and took me out for a mani-pedi and a haircut, and we're sitting there in adjoining chairs. Apparently this is something Chinese men in Singapore do. You see how everything's dilapidated. At some point, this beach had the money to make a big athletic facility, and now it's just another deserted place at 6:30 in the morning for Steve to shoot one of his Steve in a deserted place videos. And this is still used. This is the takraw field. Takraw is that sepak takraw. I think it's a Malaysian or Indonesian import. It's a game where you kick a ball, a wicker ball, woven wicker ball over a net, like volleyball or badminton, but you only use your feet. You're kicking a wicker ball. And that's where our local takraw team practices. So yeah, the first visit was great. He sent me on a fishing trip, on a free fishing trip on a boat. I wrote a column about it. I went home to Phuket. Next month, he paid me. Next month, he flies me down there again. This time, he's involved with this fishing contest at a brand new fishing resort on some island off the coast of Singapore. And I go, he wants me to be the MC for this thing, to promote the magazine. And I said, okay. So I go for a weekend, and this place is lavish, it's lush. It's apparently a money laundering operation for the Singapore Navy. And half the people there are dressed like admirals. And I'm the guy giving away the awards for biggest fish, smallest fish, whatever, biggest, this type of fish, that kind of fish. And everybody's having a good time. And it turns out that there is a woman whose job it is to live with me in my suite for the 3 days I'm there. And this is apparently something provided to everybody who comes to this resort. These dogs won't shut up. I wanted to show you these houses. This is the second road back here. I wanted to show you these houses. There's some very nice big houses, and I think they do B&B. But the dogs are barking at 6:30. I don't want to wake up the neighbors, so I'm going to stay on the cattle pitch. So this is a big weekend. It was a very memorable weekend in my life. I was a big shot. Everybody was treating me like a big shot. And none of them had ever read The Nation. None of them had ever read Phuket Magazine or the Phuket Gazette. They didn't know who Steve Rosse was, but he was a guy in a jacket and a tie giving away the prizes and telling jokes from the lectern. And that was a great weekend. I wrote a column about it. Third time I went down, he put me in a slightly run-down hotel. And I said, this is different. He said, yeah, I thought you might like some atmosphere. This is the old Chinese part of Singapore. What's not the Chinese part of Singapore? And yeah, so it's atmospheric, he said. And this time he sent me on another fishing trip, and I wrote about it. I came down a fourth time, and he said, yeah, why don't you come stay at my house? And I said, okay. And so I go to his apartment with him, and it's a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm meant to sleep in his daughter's bedroom on a bed that stops at my calves, and I'm surrounded by Hello Kitty posters, and the wife and the daughter are sleeping in the master bedroom, and Terry's sleeping on the sofa. And I'm thinking, why is he showing me, excuse me, I'm gonna pick up up. I'm thinking, why is he showing me his house? Something's very wrong. This woman is very, very nervous and upset and doesn't want me there, obviously. And the kid is like constantly on the edge of tears. And he took me to a fish farm in the middle of a bay. We didn't even get on a boat. We went out to this bunch of platforms on giant blocks of styrofoam floating in this bay, and nets hanging underneath. And they were raising fish in these nets. And you could pay to come and fish these captive fish. And it was a dull trip, but what was interesting was that the platform where these guys lived, there were about 10 guys living on this fish farm, and they lived on this big giant platform floating on big giant styrofoam blocks, and it had no walls. It was a shelter over a platform. No walls, 360 degrees open air to the bay and the ships coming in and out. And but it was decorated like a typical Chinese living room. It had a sofa and a couple big easy chairs and a big TV and a coffee table with magazines on it. And it's just a kitchen and a big dining table where these guys ate. And the whole thing was tricked out like, you know, a typical Chinese home, but it was a platform floating in the middle of a bay. But obviously something was very, very wrong. And before he took me to the airport on that trip, he said, I want you to meet my family. And he took me to this house somewhere in a suburb. Nice little house, built in the 50s, 60s, I would guess. And inside are like 5 or 6 Chinese women dressed for a funeral. And there's an old man stretched out on the sofa, obviously dying. And we go in there, and I sit down, and they bring me tea and cookies, and Terence kneels next to his father, and they have this whispered conversation, holding hands. And Terence is obviously apologizing, and he's crying, and he's sniffling, and I'm sitting there awkwardly, and all these women, 5 or 6 middle-aged and elderly women, sitting in that living room on the floor, staring at Terence like he is the devil. And we left, and he's driving me to the airport. I said, dude, what is going on? He said, well, you see, my dad had a store where he sold marine diesel engines, sold and repaired marine diesel engines for fishing boats. And he worked his whole life to buy that store, to buy the building. And he paid it off, and he owned the building. And then I got out of college. I'm the oldest son. It's up to me to be successful. And I said, Dad, KFC wants to buy the old house, or the old shop house, and put in a KFC there. And I think we should take the money and invest it, launch a fishing magazine. And he talked his dad into it, and his dad gave him the deed to the place he'd worked for 50 years to buy. And Terence sold it to KFC, and he took the money and he sunk it all, every penny, into this fishing magazine. And then within 3 issues, he had blown through all that money. And đi khắp, cùng rôm rồi đi khắp. Làm video mớiได้หรอ yeah, and he had lost it all, and then he had apparently gone to the Singapore Navy and borrowed more money to put out another issue, another edition. And that money was gone too, and now he owed the Singapore Navy a whole buttload of money. And his dad had lived just long enough to see his oldest son tank everything he'd worked for in his life. And I went back to Phuket. He never paid me. He never paid me for my last two, I think, columns, and then his phone was disconnected. Never heard from the guy again. I suppose he went into hiding. I don't know. I want to thank Jack and Diane. We are home. I'm going to stop talking now. I want to thank Jack and Diane for bringing me 81 milligram aspirin tablets. They found them in Ao Nang. And candy and all sorts of fun things. Jack and Diane, thank you very much for coming. I hope you enjoyed your visit. To the rest of you, thank you for hanging out with me. That's 24 minutes. That's quite long enough. I hope you have a terrific week. I'll look in the phone and see if there's anything in there I'll tack on the end of this. So stay tuned. And I will see you a week from now. Take very good care of yourself. And I hope you're finding your own Turtle Beach. Bye-bye. This is how we do it on Turtle Beach. And we do it right in front of Steve's house. So Steve doesn't have to go anywhere. Sawadee Mai! Sawadee Mai! Yeah. Everybody comes to Steve's house to have a party. Di ka po? And he's shameless. He is absolutely shameless. One day out of the year, everybody gets to throw off their chains and cut loose. And this is how you cut loose in a small town. None of the aggression you get in the bigger towns. Just Steve's big fat thumb in the frame. Ross has put down his golf clubs for a day to pick up a squirt gun. Oh yeah, he lives for this day.
This is the one to be annoying, isn't it?
Yeah. We are not amused.
The same one's going.
Yeah, everybody goes up and down all day. We don't have that many people in town. Everybody has to take double duty.
Well, everyone's at home now, isn't it?
Well, I am.
But I mean, everyone in the country's gone home. Bangkok's half.
Oh, you mean yes, from yes.
To go home.
What did be my cup? What did be my? Yeah, happy Songkran from Turtle Beach. Tom, where you go last night? Hello, Kyle, man. I know Mung Thai, I like Pat Pong. I rock Mung Thai. It's highway robbery, I tells you. These footpads are stopping traffic on the public highway. Something should be done. It's madness, I tells you. It's madness. It's absolute madness.
Happy Songkran Day.
Happy Songkran Day. Yeah, hit me up with some of that. Yeah. What DP my? What DP my? I don't know if you got to see any of that. Yeah. I prefer it this way. People ask, where do all the cigarette lighters come from? So this is our landfill, our town dump for the Tambon of Tai Muang. and it goes over here as well, and it stretches off into the distance. That's Kunchamnan's new samlaw that I bought. And when the rains come in a month or two, all of this stuff, not all of it obviously, but bits and pieces will get washed down into streams and rivers and head for the sea. And the cigarette lighters is what survives the journey. And the rest of this crap will get chewed up into microparticles by the sea. But the lighters are very rigid and strong. They're intended to hold gas, compressed gas. So they survive. And they wash up on the beach all over the world. 90% of the trash in the oceans comes from city streets. That's a pretty bird. I was hoping to find a cigarette lighter, you know, just to say I've made the trip for a purpose. But no such luck. But this is, for the most part, the kind of stuff I find on the beach every day. It's places like this it comes from. Look at all those plastic bags, every single one of them just dying to be mistaken for a jellyfish by a hungry turtle. And we'll put Kunchamnan in the frame to give it some scale. This is the size of what we're looking at. I owe you a couple jokes I forgot last week. So I've put on my joke telling hat and I've come downtown to our fresh market, which is closed at the moment. It is about 6 o'clock at night. You can't see it. That's the sun going down right down there. I like to do these in front of public art. It's not a turtle, but it's a painting that tells a story. I love art that is narrative. So there's a cat with a fish in its mouth, and there's a dude with some flowers, and there's a dog that doesn't like me being here, and there's a young lady in that window waiting for her flowers with a second cat and a pineapple bush. Why she has a pineapple bush in the window, I don't know. So I want to tell you some jokes about love. I read a book that said you should treat your wife as if every day was your first date. So tonight I'm dropping her off at her parents'. On our first date, she asked me, are you a cat person or a dog person? I said, I'm a vegetarian. I told her I work with animals every day. She said, what do you do? I said, I'm a butcher. She said she wanted to go someplace expensive. I took her to the gas station. He's loving these jokes. So the last one, a very wealthy Arab sheikh has vetted 3 young women from good families that his son can marry. But he's a man of the modern age. He wants to let his son make the choice. So he gives the names to the young man. The young man goes to see these women. The first one, he gives $1,000 to see what she'll do with it. She goes shopping for a day. She comes back with $1,000 worth of clothes she's purchased for herself. So he gives the same test to the second woman. She takes her $1,000 shopping. She comes back. She's got $500 worth of clothes for her and $500 worth of clothes for him. The third one, he gives the same $1,000. She goes away, she comes back, she's got $1,000 worth of clothes just for him. Which one do you think he married? Well, he married the one with the biggest tits. Come on. Believe it or not, this is the best time of my week. I really appreciate your attention. I hope you have a terrific 7 days, and I'll see you right here again. Like, subscribe, and share.
Whatever shaves your sheep, whatever bakes your lamb, whatever digs your peak, whatever smokes your ham, whatever blows your nose, whatever chews your bone, whatever squirts your hose, whatever sings your song. Do it often, but do it well. Nobody knows and there's no way to tell. When you're riding, shoot down to that